Jaya Radha. Wait a minute. I have some. Yeah. Can you sit on that side this time? Yes. Because we have another lady here. All right. We're okay. Ah. Okay. You still need a sheet? Jaya Radha Madhava sheet. You okay? All right. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Jai Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Prabhupada Paramahamsa Parivajikacharya Ashtotirtha Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajikacharya Ashtotirtha Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. I have text 38. 39, yeah? I don't think we did 38. Different degrees of covering. Did we do that? Come on, half of you were in the class. We did 38 already. Okay. Sorry, 39. Okay, we're on page 175. 175. Uh-oh, you have a different book. Yeah, you have a different book. I can see by the margins. So, takes 39 in chapter 3. 1? In your book. Alone, only in your book. Ours is also 175. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tapas, I think I'm a little low. This, yeah, just a little low. On his 4th day of May 2022 in San Diego, a reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 3 entitled Karma Yoga, text number 39, on page 175 of most of your books. Hare Krishna. That's good, that's good, that's better. Avitam Jnanam Etena Jnanino Nityavairina Kamarupena Kaunteya Dushpurena Nalenacha Avatam Jnanametena Jnanino Nityavairina Kamarupena Kaunteya Dushpurena Nalenacha Avitam Jnanametena Jnanino Nityavairina Kamarupena Kaunteya Dushpurena Nalenacha Avitam Jnanametena Jnanino Nityavairina Kamarupena Kaunteya Dushpurena Nalenacha Avitam Jnanametena Jnanino Nityavairina Kamarupena Kaunteya Dushpurena Nalenacha Avritam Jnanametena Jnanino Nityavairina Kamarupena Kaunteya Dushpurena Nalenacha. Tapas. Avritam Jnanametena Jnanino Nityavairina Rupena Kaunteya Purena Nalenapa. Go ahead. Avitam Jnanametena Jnanino Nityavairina Kamarupena Kaunteya Dushpurena Nalenacha. Avitam Jnanametena Jnanino Nityavairina Kamarupena Kaunteya Dushpurena Nalenacha. No? Not yet? Okay. Anyone on Zoom?
Avritam Jnana Etena
Avitam Jnanametena
Jnanino Nityavairina
Jnanino Nityavairina
Kamarupena Kaunteya
Kamarupena Kaunteya
Dushpurena Nalenacha.
Dushpurena Nalenacha. Word by words. Avitam covered, Jnanam pure consciousness, Etena by this, Jnaninaha of the knower, Nityavairina by the eternal enemy, Kama Rupena, in the form of lust. Kaunteya, O son of Kunti, Dushpurena, never to be satisfied, Analena, by the fire, Cha also. Translation. Thus the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. Purport. It is said in the Manusmriti that lust cannot be satisfied by any amount of sense enjoyment, just as fire is never extinguished by a constant supply of fuel. In the material world, the center of all our activities is sex, and thus this material world is called Maitunya Agara, or the shackles of sex life. In the ordinary prison house, criminals are kept within bars. Similarly, the criminals who are disobedient to the laws of the Lord are shackled by sex life. Advancement of material civilization on the basis of sense gratification means increasing the duration of the material existence of a living entity. Therefore, this lust is the symbol of ignorance by which the living entity is kept within the material world. While one enjoys sense gratification, it may be that there is some feeling of happiness, but actually, that so-called feeling of happiness is the ultimate enemy of the sense enjoyer. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So Krishna is continuing to describe the ultimate enemy that we have in this world. This section was introduced by a question from Arjuna in text 36. Atakena prayukto yam. Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? And how can one be impelled to acts even unwillingly? That's it. That happens when there's a contrast, there's a conflict, say, between your intelligence and your lower self, the senses, the mind, the things that are impelling you to do things that you may know, this is going to get me into trouble. Just like some of us may have had experience or know someone who was or is addicted to drugs or alcohol or gambling. Let's just use those three. Gambling can be as addictive as anything. And I knew someone like that, an alcoholic. And the person knew that this was not good for them. It's not a mystery. Your physical health, your mental health, your social life, everything is damaged and can be destroyed by that. And yet, it was just impossible for them to give it up. I remember there was a fellow here who he became a friend of a devotee who was sent here. This is an interesting story because, anyway, it's true that we have and had schools called Gurukul schools. Some of you may have heard this, to raise the children in Krishna consciousness. There's many devotees who have children and they need schooling. So Prabhupada was very eager that these children be raised in the Krishna conscious way and taught, Bhagavad Gita, and raised a very, very saintly atmosphere. But sometimes some of the children in the schools, and when they get to be a little older, adolescents, they go astray. It's not unusual, And one fellow who was a son of a nice devotee who I met in Alachua, he got into alcohol. Even though he was raised in the Gurukul, went through so many things. There's a backstory I won't get into. But he was struggling against it, and this devotee thought that he might benefit if he had my association, because I would visit his house, and everything. So he sent him here from Alachua, Florida, to be part of the temple, and I supported him with an apartment and everything like that. So this nice devotee, I think his name was Kirtan something, he found up the street, I had no idea it was here, a major installation of Alcoholics Anonymous, AA, right up there. And then he would come down here, he would be in the kirtans and things, but he would spend time up there also. And in this way, getting some strength to renounce alcohol. So he met one fellow up there who was curious about us, and so he brought him down here. He had been a cocaine addict. That was his thing. And he was fighting against that. But he was interested in Krishna consciousness. And he liked my classes. He would come to these classes right here. But the poor fellow was so addled from the drug that he could sit for maybe 10 minutes, then he had to get up and go outside and walk around a little bit. He couldn't, like that. So he tried to take part in Krishna consciousness, but his mind wouldn't let him, because you actually can do brain damage, So eventually, he got estranged from the temple and he couldn't be part of the temple anymore. So I had, and the other fellow, but the devotee, he was actually straightened out by the AA and Krishna consciousness together. And the fact of the matter is that there's a close relationship, because I went up there. They invited him to come up there to speak, And they have these little coins that they give you, I don't know if you know. They say, whoa, 6 months. 6 months, dry, clean, 10 years. So I used to drink when I was a kid, when I was 18. I was like 60 years ago or so. So they didn't have a 45-year thing. Because then you have to say, my name is Dravida Dasa, and I'm an alcoholic, but I'm clean for 45 years. No, it didn't compute, But I did hear some of it, and they gave me a book. And there's a lot of, the thing is, they try to contact a higher power. They try to be as ecumenical as possible, so it's not any, And also the association, the sangha, to get the spiritual strength, to get the will to renounce and to not go into the bar, to not do hang out with the people you used to hang out with like that. So there's a kind of similarity to it. They're trying to get to a better place, sober. And we're trying to get to the best place, back home, back to Godhead. but the principles are, there's an interrelationship there. Sangha is so important. Sangha means association. The word satsang, I'm sure, I haven't looked it up, but I would bet 100 Globsmans that it's in the English dictionary now, Because English just vacuums up all kinds of words, from the French, the German, the Latin, and, Indian and Hindi. Karma is definitely there, yoga is definitely there. So, satsang means literally sadhu sangha. That's what it comes from. It's a shortening of it. And that's what we have here. That's what Prabhupada said. I started this movement, Society of Krishna Consciousness, to give people a chance to associate with devotees and to associate with each other. And the best association is Sankirtan, chanting the holy name. You chant, I chant, you hear, then you chant and I hear. And this is the dharma of the age. It is said in the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Kalir doshana de rajan asiyeko mahadyona kirtanadiva krishnasya mukta sangha param bhajet. There's that word sangha again. Because sangha can be positive or negative. Sangha means two things. It means association and it means attachment. You can see why. Because as you associate with other people and things, and you're going to get attached. It's like you pick it up, like a disease. Sometimes it's a good disease. You get attached to Krishna, but the point, it's catching. So this good association is in Krishna consciousness. It gives you the spiritual strength to follow the instructions, and you get the higher taste. This is what's so important. Is that what is it that draws us? What is it that, as Arjuna asked the question, what is it that, and why is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? Even unwillingly means it's bad for you, but you do it. It's this strong desire that you've cultivated by association, by contact with the object of the senses. You take 1 drink, 2 drink, 5 drink, and after a while, you're an alcoholic. You know, it's addictive, and that's true of everything. Everything in this, I'll tell you, it's interesting. There's a verse in the 15th chapter describing this transmigration of the soul, and describing how the subtle body, the mind, intelligence, and ego, doesn't die when the gross body dies. That subtle body, which is filled with all the thoughts and desires and fears that you have, right? That stays with you. You never die. I have this little mantra that you can take it home with you. You can make a t-shirt out of it. I changed it a little bit. Every single body dies. Because every single body dies. Nobody dies. Wake up and open your eyes. You're not that body, you're a pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. So that is the first lesson, and a very essential lesson of Krishna consciousness. You're not the body, you're pure spirit. But because you as spirit consciousness are identifying with the body, meditating on the body, meditating on the object of the senses, therefore you become attached to them. And you become attached to the pleasurable sensations of the body, right? And also of the mind, subtle sense gratification. So in the 5th chapter, Krishna is going to, there's no minced words here. He's on the battlefield. Every syllable counts, So in the 5th chapter, I think it's text 20, he says, Yehi sang, exactly what Prabhupada says at the end of this purport. The happiness of sense gratification is your worst enemy. Because that's the happiness of the drug that the drug addicts take and the alcoholics take. Ultimately that's your worst enemy. It drags you on to do it again. So he says, Yehi sangsparjaja boga, dukkha yone evate, adyantabanta konteya nateshu ramate buddha. Buddha means the intelligent. Those who are intelligent don't take part in the pleasures, or don't try to enjoy the pleasures of the senses. Sangsparjaja boga literally means the touching of the senses with their objects. Now, it doesn't have to be physical touching. Just like the eye has its own object, beauty, wants to see, then it's touching it when he sees something beautiful. The nose is touching the fragrance. And of course the tactile sense is also there, physical touching. So, sangsparjaja boga, the enjoyment that comes from the senses contacting the sense objects, dukkha yona evate, is the source of misery, of unhappiness. If nothing else, it gets you another birth. And birth is not a pleasant experience. We've forgotten it. That's Krishna's mercy. But being packed up like that, and you wake up after like 6.5 months, this is in the Vedas. Every mother knows a child starts kicking at a certain point, right? He's conscious. So you wake up and there you are. It's described in the 3rd canto. When I first read this, I was aghast. How did they know? How did they figure this out? That the child in the womb is waking up at a certain point. Of course, the senses can't really do much, but the child is awake and you can remember. And he says, oh, I knew I should have gone to Mangalarti. Look at me now. No, it's like that. He's saying, I don't know if you know, Mangalarti, yeah, okay. So he's saying, for now, he starts praying to the Lord, I'm going to be a really Paka devotee when I come out. No problem. But the problem is that you may be born into a family that's not Paka devotees. And so you're helpless. You forget everything when you're born. You don't remember life in the womb. This is all Krishna's mercy. Otherwise, we'd all be walking around with a huge case of PTSD, right? all of the traumas we've been in the last life and in the birth, not just one birth, but many births. You have to live with all that, and nobody could live with it. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, what is it? Sarvasya buddhisannavishto matta smriti jnanam apohanangcha. I am in the hearts of all as the super soul. We should all remember that God is with us as close as could be. He's trying to enlighten us, but we're not listening. We're looking outside. So out of his mercy, he comes externally as Bhagavad Gita. Because Krishna is speaking to us. It's non-different. We should remember that. We're able to hear Krishna's words directly. And he comes as a spiritual master. He comes as the saints to give us instruction. They're just repeating what Krishna is saying in the book. So, but right now, if we're averse to that, we don't want to hear. So the sangsasparja dukkha yona evate. That pleasure draws you on, and it creates a vritti, it creates an impression in your mind. If you enjoy it one time, you'll do it again. Just like I used last night, they engineer these foods, the snack foods, to be addictive, isn't it? They have people, they paid a lot of money to perfect the mouthfeel, and the exact taste, these processed foods, to addict you. You're addicted. Bet you can't eat only one. I mean, even they use the advertisement, that's a positive thing. I just ate a whole bag of Doritos, thanks a lot. But it's true. The tongue is the most voracious and uncontrollable. We have a song about that. So the point is that yoga, yoga, indriya samya, it's like defined as controlling the senses. But real yoga, the ultimate yoga, bhakti yoga, is more than just controlling the senses. It's engaging the senses in connecting to Krishna. That's where the yoga part. Yoga means to make a connection. So it's not just subduing the senses or, with force of will. That doesn't work anyway. As we just read recently, what will repression accomplish? Ultimately, it comes out. You can't take it. No, we need a process to purify the senses and purify the mind, purify the intelligence, so that it's not an act of will to give up these things and constant pressure of them, but you actually lose that. It's the attraction for the material is sublimated into attraction for the spiritual. The whole point of Krishna consciousness is to increase more and more our attraction to Krishna, which is wholesome. There's no bad side effect. Completely wholesome. It allows you to lead a mode of goodnessly life, because you're not being whipped around by the senses and the allurements of the material world. You see what they are for real. You're seeing through the eyes of the Shastra. And you have the spiritual strength because you've purified the senses, so you're attracted to Krishna. And there's no limit. You can drink that, you can chant Hare Krishna from here till Tuesday. And it's all wholesome. It's good. And when you get to Tuesday, you'll be peaceful, you'll be joyful, you'll be naturally happy, because you're connecting with the reservoir of pleasure, Krishna, in your heart. And it's real. This is, we have our great acharyas, like Srila Prabhupada and his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta and Bhaktivinoda Thakur, all the way back, who've experienced this. And they've shown the lifestyle, how wholesome it is. And Srila Prabhupada, in the most courageous way, introduced this into a completely alien environment in 1965, coming to America. But he knew that every one of these people here are ultimately servants of God. They all have dormant Krishna consciousness within them. It's the most natural thing, but they've forgotten it. It's covered. And that's what this verse is about that we just read. Avritam jnaname. Avritam means covering. Jnana is knowledge. The knowledge, our natural knowledge of who we are, who God is, who Krishna is, it's all in there, but it's buried. But it is covered by material desire. Why? Because we're competing with Krishna. The whole idea is that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. He's the one who is rightfully the enjoyer. And when we take our enjoyment in his enjoyment, then our ability to enjoy also expands unlimitedly. It makes perfect sense. In the Vedanta Sutra, there's one little sutra. They're aphorisms. They're very terse. You have to explain. It says, Anandamayo Bhyasat. Anandamaya simply means full of bliss. And Abhyasat means by activities, some practice. So we see by Krishna's life and by Krishna's, learning about him, that he's always full of bliss. Even when he's fighting the demons, he's having fun. There's no question of losing the battle, but Prabhupada said Krishna likes to fight sometimes. Otherwise, how do we get where did it come up in us? Whatever we have is a reflection. So he has a perfect desire to fight, but how is he going to fight in Vaikuntha? Everybody's just worshiping him there. Nobody's going to be an enemy, So if he wants to fight, he has to come down here. But who does he fight? His devotees. Like Jai and Vijay, there's devotees. I don't know if you know this story. They're guards at the gates of Vaikuntha. You know the story. So the Kumaras went up there. Now the four Kumaras are incredible. They look like little children, but they're the most ancient persons. Lord Brahma, he has a big headache. When he has four heads. When he creates the universe, there's a big problem. He has to populate it. How all of these souls who are waiting to take birth and continue with their karma, I have to arrange for that, you know. So he has all the planets and everything, and then he has to, you know, produce from his mind, which is all there is really, these prajapatis. Prajapatis mean progenitors. It's almost the same as in English. Those who are going to give birth to generations of living entities, gradually will take their bodies and start their karma again. So he has that headache, that problem, how to do that. So he starts off, and he creates these Kumaras, these little four children, and he wants them to get married and have a lot of children and start propagating. They don't want any part of it. No. We know. We have all this knowledge. They're avatars of knowledge, you know, Shaktivesha. We're going to, by the strength of our yoga, we're going to keep ourselves little boys, 6 years old. No question of getting married. Brahma says, what? He's angry. He gets angry at them. And from the middle of his, you know, here comes Shiva. He's manifested at that time. But the four Kumaras, they're jnanis. They're not, you know, Mayavadis, but they prefer the meditation on the Brahman. There's a pleasure in that also. But then they're very powerful. They can go anywhere. So they go up to Vaikuntha, and they want to check out Vaikuntha. But they're not actual bhaktas, so they're not allowed in yet, you know. So they're stopped by the Jaya and Vijay, the gatekeepers. They're servants. And they get furious, which proves that they're not bhaktas, you know. So they get very angry, and they curse them to come down to earth, to this material world. And it's a long story, but they come down, they get the option of, I think, coming back after 6 or 8 births as devotees or 3 births as demons. So they're, all right, let's get back quicker, so they're demons. So they become the biggest demons. Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. That's the first incarnation. So who knows? Raise your hand. Who knows which incarnation of Krishna killed Hiranyakashipu? Yes, Nrsingadev. Yes, whose birthday is just coming up, you know, soon. I forget what's the date. You remember? 14th, Saturday. So, and for extra credit, who killed Hiranyaksha? Bhajamandala. He had to dig deep down to get the earth. Varaha. Yeah. So this is, Krishna got to fight. He got to fight as the boar, he got to fight as Nrsingadev, for sure. When you read Nrsingadev, he doesn't just kill Hiranyakashipu, he could have just killed him with a slap. He has a fight, you know, and he seems to be, you know, losing a little bit. You know? He's having fun. But, so Krishna comes down like that. So the idea is that the four Kumaras, they committed a great offense, they feel, because they cursed devotees. And they were very repentant. But Vishnu comes to the gate, and he says, don't worry. You know, this is ultimately my will. He doesn't say because I wanted to fight, but that's, you know. And, you know, it's all going to be all right. But they were very repentant. But they were transformed. As soon as this is very interesting, as soon as they smelled the fragrance of the lotus feet and the tulsi, manjaris, you know, the flowers on the lotus feet of the Lord. There's a famous verse, how they became transformed from impersonalists to personalists. And that's why they're so repentant. Because, oh, these are devotees and we curse them. Oh my God, you know. So Vishnu had to assure them that it was all my plan, you know, everything's okay. So the idea is that when they became bhaktas, they became more purified even than they were before. And they have their own sampradaya that comes down now. You know, I mean, the whole disciplic succession coming down from the four Kumaras of bhaktas, of devotees. So the idea is that the material desire covers our innate knowledge. Avritam jnanametina, jnanina. We are the jnanina. We are full of knowledge, which we can't access right now. We're covered by, and if we become covered by ignorance. And Kama rupena kontena, this in the form of kama, which is dushpurena analena, never satisfied and burns like fire. So the idea is that life after life, this is what I want to mention in the 15th chapter. So it's describing the process of reincarnation, right? And it's describing how the soul takes another body, and generally, unless it's really a lower body, a plant body or something, you have a set of eyes and ears and so forth, but it's an animal body. But you still have those. So it says, Shotram Chakshu Sparshanamsha, Rasanam Granam Evacha, Adhishtaya Manishchayam, Vishyan Upasevate. And he says there that, and you get a certain eye and ear and everything grouped around the mind, and then Upasevate, Vishyan Upasevate, you serve or interact with the objects of the senses. Now, I deal with words all the time. Dictionaries, English dictionaries and Sanskrit dictionaries too. And so somehow or other, for some reason, I looked up this word upasevate, and one of the meanings is addicted, addiction. You become addicted to a certain set of sense objects. Prabhupada always gives the graphic example of the hog. Here's a living entity who may have been in a human body before, but due to gross sinful activities, takes the body of a hog. Now hogs, apparently, I haven't spent so much time in India, but they like to eat feces. Ooh, Here's the same living entity who was in maybe a human form of life and was eating, porridge or whatever. And now suddenly the taste changed. It's horrible to think like that. That the same person basically is interacting, and now that's the taste. So this is why the happiness of sense gratification ultimately produces misery. So what's the solution to this problem? Krishna will give a couple of verses. He's going to give us one of the main solutions, but it begins with controlling the senses, and the only way to do that is to strengthen the mind and the intelligence. Okay, I have a choice now. I can go to the party. Okay, I'm a vegetarian. I know that that's not good to eat meat, but I'm just going to pig out on whatever they have there, cakes, cookies, and this and that. Or I'm going to go to the Hare Krishnas. I heard they have a nice feast. So now you have a choice. Now, what criterion do you use for the choice? The more that you know the dangers of just eating for sense gratification, and how it causes, it's like this, it's a little bit of pleasure and a whole ton of pain. This is what sense gratification is. Yes, there was some pleasure, we ate this, we did this, we had this, relationship. But now I'm getting another body, and because you don't have any idea what you're doing, you're committing sins, you may lose a human body and be in this situation. And there you are. Because because of ignorance. So this knowledge can save us if we take it and act on it. And so Krishna consciousness is a systematic way of regulating the senses. What to hear? You have a choice. You can hear a million different things. There's a verse about that right at the beginning of the second canto. Or you can hear Bhagavad Gita. And you can chant Hare Krishna mantra and hear that. I know that this is very auspicious and it's good for me, and I like, and it seems like the people who do this are nice people, so let me try it. For whatever reason you chant Hare Krishna, it's auspicious, incredibly powerful. And because Krishna is non-different than his holy name, this is inconceivable to the material mind. The fact that the sound Krishna is non-different from Krishna, but if you really chant seriously, you'll find a transformation of your consciousness. And everything about Krishna will become more attractive if you're actually making an attempt to serve him. And so that's what Bhakti Yoga means. It is a thorough and scientific program of using all the senses and the mind and everything we have in such a way that they're in contact with God, with Krishna, with Krishna's devotees, and become purified. Purified of what? Purified of attraction to the material energy. And ultimately, you can even feel it, even after a little while.
what was drawing you that you couldn't give up? He says, I don't care anymore. I'm getting a higher taste. The wonderful verse in the previous chapter, key verse. Vishayavanivartante nadaharasya dehina rasavajam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. The vishayas, the object of the senses, if you forcibly give them up, just like a million people trying to lose weight, right? Okay, no more, no more, quart of ice cream before I take rest. No more. It may happen. That happens sometimes, right? All right, so you give it up, but you still want it. The problem is, you still want it. And if you hang out with other people who are doing it, then no, you're finished. But here, this verse says, yes, the objects of the senses can be given up by this way. If you don't consume them, I'm not going to consume. Rasa varjam, but the rasa, the taste remains. But rasopyasya param drishtva. But even the taste goes, the desire goes, if you can param drishtva, which is kind of code for saying seeing the Supreme, directly contacting the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, whose name means all attractive. He's attracting us away from the lower things, away from the self-destructive experiences that we're used to, which we out of ignorance. So your knowledge will save you. Says, no, I'm not going to do that, even though I may want to, because I know that if I chant Hare Krishna and I engage in Krishna consciousness, even that desire will go, and I can make real progress. And that's how it works. The hundreds of thousands of people all over the world have never even heard of Krishna, but Prabhupada's books and the temples and the devotees and the chanting, yes, we can get the higher taste. So back to our verse. Avritam Gyanametina. So our knowledge is now covered by lust. And the wise living entity pure. So we're wise, but in our covered state we're not wise. We're in ignorance. So we need to contact that knowledge again. And so that we can actually live according to what's best for us. That's word Shreyas. Remember the word Shreyas? Shreya means the ultimate good. There's this wonderful verse Prabhupada would always quote about the need for approaching a spiritual master or a guru. And the verse begins with the word tasmat. And the tasmat is therefore. So I was curious, what comes before that verse that it comes tasmat, So the verse goes, tasmat gurun papadyeta jigyashu shreya uttamam. Shabde padecha nishnatam brahmanupashamashriyam. Sanskrit is so compact, there's so much in this one verse. So he says tasmat, and I'll tell you what came before because it's very important. Tasmat gurum papadyeta. One needs to approach and surrender to a genuine spiritual master, guru. And he defines that in the second half of the verse. But who should approach? Jigyasu Shreya Uttama. For one who is curious or inquisitive about the Uttama Shreya, the ultimate good. What's the ultimate good? Well, we can define it by our ordinary lives. Ordinary lives, that we live, that everyone lives. We're trying to maximize the happiness and minimize the unhappiness. Who can deny it? It's not just us. The ants, the animals. They want to increase the pleasure and decrease the misery. That's just a given. So then he says, well, okay, here's how different categories of people try to do that before this verse. And he's saying that, the ordinary person, they get together, members of the opposite sex, and they plan a life and they try to enjoy. But one should understand that ultimately, because you have to always look at ultimately. I mean, we're eternal souls, so that's, and ultimately we get just the opposite. It doesn't produce happiness. If that's all there is, I'm not saying that it can't be, devotee marriages that are very fulfilling because they're centered on Krishna. But that's not what he's talking about. The ordinary course of events, people get married and but in the ultimate end, what happens? Till death do us part. It's right there when you get married, right? Yeah, but then what happens? See, that's not part of it. Death do us part. Oh, then it's all over and there's nothing. No. Death is just a transition. We all go through death. It's not that we just all die. We go through death. what comes out on the other side? We're still alive. You never die. Jayate mriyate vakadacha. First lesson, no birth, no death. So then what's going to happen? How do I get the next best birth? You know, I can't just think of this life or maybe this 20 years. Oh, we'll be very happy, you know, have the house and the kids and everything like that. All right, fine. But then what? Then what? Then what? Then what? You know. So he's saying that you always get the opposite. On your deathbed, you know, okay, what do I got left? Nothing. It's all taken away, you know. So that's not going to work. Okay, so maybe we can go to the heavenly planets, live a long, 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 long time there, you know. So he says, no, but you go to the heavenly planets, and there's also envy up there. Look at Indra. Poor Indra. He's always wondering, you know, Prithu's making a certain number of sacrifices. Oh no, he's going to outdo me. So he comes disguised as a sannyasi and steals a horse who's part of the sacrifice. Where's the happiness? Even in Indra, you see. So that's not going to help you. And you come down again. And, you know, when your piety is over, then you fall down again. The Martya Loka, the world of death. Krishna doesn't mince words. So karma kanda is not going to help you, and just ordinary life is not going to help you. And even if you try to merge into Brahman, you eventually come down, because that's unnatural too. So therefore, he says, Tasmai Guru Prapajita, if you want to inquire about the ultimate good, you have to approach a real spiritual master. And in the Bhagavatam, the real spiritual master is the realized bhakta, the Krishna conscious devotee. And what is he going to tell you? Exactly what Krishna tells you here. So let's go on. Our knowledge is covered. How do we uncover it? So now he analyzes. Text 40. Indriyani mano buddhir asyadishtanam uchyate etavamohayatyesha jnanamavritta dehinam. So this is expansion of the last verse. Well, how does this lust cover the knowledge of the living entity? The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. Purport: the enemy has captured different strategic positions in the body of the conditioned soul, and therefore Lord Krishna is giving hints of those places so that one who wants to conquer the enemy may know where he can be found. Mind is the center of all the activities of the senses, and thus when we hear about sense objects, the mind generally becomes a reservoir of all ideas of sense gratification. And, as a result, the mind and the senses become the repositories of lust. Next, the intelligence department becomes the capital of such lustful propensities. Intelligence is the immediate next-door neighbor of the spirit soul. Lusty intelligence influences the spirit soul to acquire the false ego and identify itself with matter, and thus with the mind and senses. The spirit soul becomes addicted to enjoying the material senses and mistakes this as true happiness. This false identification of the spirit soul is very nicely explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam 10.84.13. This verse is spoken by Krishna, and Prabhupada quoted it very often. Yasyatma buddhi, I'll say you say, Yasyatma buddhi kunape tridatuke swadi kalatra disobama ijadihi Yattirtha buddhi salile nakar hechij Janesha biggesha saeva gokaraha. A human being who identifies this body made of three elements with his self, the three elements of kapha, vita, vayu, mucus, bile, and air. Does anyone think, I'm just a big bag of mucus? No one thinks like that, but that's what So that's what, if you identify with his body, that's what you're thinking. A human being who identifies this body made of three elements with his self, who considers the byproducts of the body to be his kinsmen, who considers the land of birth worshipable, and who goes to the place of pilgrimage simply to take a bath rather than meet men of transcendental knowledge there, is to be considered like an ass or a cow. Not very exalted. So this is standard things, that identifying with the body as the soul, as the self, and the things related to the body as mine. This is called aham mameti, I and my. I and mind. I am this body, and things related to it are mine. See? I can prove it. See, here's my signature on my driver's license. So that's the mentality of a cow or an ass. There's another meaning of gokara. Kara is a donkey, and the donkey who carries the fodder for feeding the cow can also be called a gokara. That way we don't have to malign the cows because we worship the cows, right? Anyway, it's not very nice. Animal mentality. So this is very illuminating. The senses, the mind, and the intelligence, repositories of lust, ideas of sense gratification, right? All the literature, the movies, the things which play on your material desires and fire up your lusty desires. You're not actually doing anything, but the mind and intelligence are becoming completely filled with those ideas, and then it manifests somehow in physical activity. This is how lust, the enemy takes over the strategic points. The senses, this is what addiction is. This is pertinent to the previous verse. What is it that forces us? I, as the intelligence, am aghast. What's happening to me? I'm compelled to go, and I'm obsessed with doing this, doing this, and I know it's bad for me. So the intelligence is not yet completely covered over, but the senses and the mind are tightly in the bonds of alcohol, drugs, or whatever. This is what goes on. So, and in this way, through the senses and the intelligence and the mind, your innate knowledge is covered. We always have to remember that we know all these things. We have a memory, although it's covered now, of the spiritual world. That's why we try to imitate. Where do we get the ideas for all of these activities? Probably the perfect phrase, perverted reflection. It's even at the beginning of the 15th chapter. Everything is inverted and perverted in this world. Nothing is eternal. Any relationship is temporary. It's got to be disappointing. But it's reflecting the relations in the spiritual world. Friendship, love, between a man and woman, and of course parental relationship, the perfect example, Krishna's, relation with his mother and father. That's all there. But in this world, it's reverted, means that it's temporary. And there's all kinds of inebrieties, probably would call them, imperfections. So we won't do this. We won't get to text 41. We'll finish this chapter next week. But this is very illuminating, is that the senses, mind, and intelligence. So what's the solution? Engage the senses, mind, and intelligence in Krishna consciousness. Instead of listening to the rock music, you just press the other button and you listen to the kirtan. Your whole destiny is in the buttons you push in this world, right? Which letters do you hit with the thumbs is that makes your destiny. Am I hitting, let's go to the Hare Krishna site, YouTube. There's a million things you can hear. But if you're intelligent, you pick out the right one, that's uplifting. The kirtan. The following Srila Prabhupada. If you're interested, if you've never seen those, they're incredible. They're all on YouTube now. These are videos of Prabhupada and also devotees. So many Rath Yatras in 1970 Rath Yatra. You can see thousands of people in Golden Gate Park, joining the Rath Yatra, and Prabhupada comes, and then he's dancing in front. It's wonderful. It just depends on what buttons you push. You press other buttons, and you go to some unholy site I won't even mention. So this is it. It's all a choice. Life is different choices. Are we going? I like to give the example. We'll have to end because it's getting late. This place is what, 50 feet from the bar and grill down in the corner, right? This one's on the corner. They keep changing it, but it's basically a place where you drink and get pizza, right? Drink beer and get pizza. So that free will. It's all dependent on where your mind is taking you. No, I'm not going to go there. I read in the Bhagavad Gita, the modes of ignorance is very dangerous. I'm going to come to the Hare Krishnas. But the other people say, following the tongue, it's cool. It's a free country. Yeah, but then your freedom is taken. You're really not free. You're bound up by your material desires, the modes of nature. So if you want real freedom, it means becoming attached to Krishna and becoming addicted to the holy name. and prasadam. Yes, we can become addicted to prasadam, but don't eat too much. All right, we have 30 seconds. Any questions or comments? Oh, we need to turn on.
Prabhuji, thank you for a wonderful talk.
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I just had, remembering your talk yesterday also, where you wonderfully connected, when talking about lust, you connected the verse in chapter 262, where he said contemplation on the object of senses leads to attachment, which then lust arises from it.
Yes.
And this chapter here again, and then from that anger arises. And I can see how here the unsatisfaction of your lust can lead to anger.
Oh, absolutely.
And also there's a quote in chapter 1838 where it talks about how in the mode of passion, this happens and it appears as nectar first, but then it ends as poison.
Yeah, poison in the end.
Yeah, so it's a beautiful way of how this whole cycle of lust
Krishna
happens.
is completely consistent throughout the whole book.
Yeah,
You know.
it's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, one quick poem. All right. Yeah. All right, Shikshastika is always good. Central verse. Trinadapi sunichena, tadorapi sahishnuna, amanina manadena, kirtani eksadahari. This is Krishna's recommendation, as Lord Chaitanya's recommendation, as how we can chant more and more. He says constantly. More humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, to think all praise belongs to others, none belongs to me. Such qualities attract the Lord to bless one with the power to chant His name incessantly until the final hour. So this mood, which is very easy to get in this world, in this Kali Yuga, to be, to feel downtrodden and helpless and desperate, then in that mood, if you chant Hare Krishna, if you try to get Krishna's attention and mercy, then you can really chant with tremendous feeling. And Krishna responds to that by giving you the strength to keep chanting and becoming strong. This is the advantage of the Kali Yuga. It's horrible for yoga. You don't live very long, and we're misguided, all this. But because it's so bad, if you realize that, I'm completely desperate, I got to chant Hare Krishna, from the bottom of my heart, then you can completely transcend the evils of this age and attain perfection. So the last shall be first, and the first shall be last. It's in the Bible. We're the last, so we can be first if we chant Hare Krishna. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Hare.